Right, are we live? It looks like we're live. I assume we're live. Right, so well, there's a big echo. Two speakers am I coming out of here?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe you're. Why did this was not happening at all ago? Sorry, everyone. Bear with us while we get started. This seems like it's fixed now. What a great start. Technical glitch. Always happens. But anyway, welcome everyone. I think we have about 100 people joining us in this webinar, which is all around relocating to Germany, the costs of living, the logistics of making it happen. There's loads of questions that people have, and we're hosting this event. We are Darwin Recruitment that are hosting this event with Simple Germany. A very quick introduction to Darwin Recruitment and what we do. We are a pan-European technology recruitment business. So we are very good at finding technology people like software engineers and data scientists and finding them jobs in Germany. Most of the time that is people that already live in Germany. But a big portion of the time we have to find people from outside of Germany as well, because the labour market isn't big enough for the demand of skills in this part of Europe. So we relocate people from other EU countries. That's not easy, but it's still much easier than relocating people from non-EU territories. There are bigger hoops to jump through and more process to follow. But we do both of those things. However, we have decided to host this with Simple Germany because they are experts at all of these questions that people have. So I'll leave it to them to introduce themselves and what they do. So tell us about Simple Germany. Oh, you're on mute.
Technical problems, always. Good that it's an IT recruitment company, yeah? So first of all, I wanted to say thanks for having us. It's really cool to be here and for you to organize such an event. So to keep it short, my name is Jen and I'm originally from Guatemala.
And mine is Yvonne and I'm from Germany.
And together we actually are in Simple Germany, where we create English content to empower internationals to settle into life in Germany. And we love to say more smoothly on our YouTube channel. So that pretty much sums up what we do. We create English content on our YouTube channel as well as our website in the hopes of helping the newcomers to not struggle as much as I struggled when I first came to Germany, because there's some hurdles that need to be overtaken.
Amazing. So both of you relocated to Germany. You have the experience of doing it, and now I'm assuming towards the end of this event we will put all the links out there. But Simple Germany has a YouTube channel which is great to watch. It has a website which has got some amazing tools and resources for people to use when they're trying to get the answers to some of these questions. So after this conversation, I would encourage everybody to go and check out that website. It's tremendously useful. It's so useful, even recruitment professionals like us rely on that to do our job. It's that good. So we might as well kick off the conversation. And one of the first questions that we're going to address is the cost of living in Germany versus the salary that people should earn. So what we want to talk through is the different tools that someone can use to calculate their salary and the cost of living. Now I'm going to start by just explaining how I typically encourage people to get a benchmark, and then I guess you'll get a much better answer after my shoddy attempt. But we typically use the net salary that someone earns in their current country and the cost of their rent or their mortgage. And then once you have those two figures, you can kind of at least draw some kind of comparison to what you would need to earn in Germany, because you can use the typically the increase in the cost of a mortgage or the cost of rent to then gauge how much does the net salary have to increase. And then from the net salary, we get the gross salary with a tax calculator. That is about as good as my advice gets. So I think maybe I should hand you over to the real professionals on this topic and see what advice they have on this question.
I was going to say you nailed it.
Well, technically you already reverse engineered it, because I think what's very common is in job ads or in negotiations that you just get a gross yearly number thrown at your head pretty much, and you need to deal with that. And we know, especially from, let's say, people not coming from the Eurozone, already the euro is not, they cannot grasp it. What does it even mean? what does it get me, and then a salary even less, particularly because Germany, I would say, depending on where you're from, has a lot higher deductions from your salary than you might be used to. So it's obviously extremely individual, and that's why also there are these calculators that give you a better estimate, like a better feel of what you can expect. But one can kind of like say around 40% of your gross yearly salary you won't even see in your bank account. That's where it starts.
Yeah, exactly. And regarding the cost of living, well, of course, it highly depends on your lifestyle and what kind of hobbies do you have or don't have. Do you want to go to the gym or want to do workout at home, for example, is a clear example. Also, do you have kids or not? Will they be going to international schools or public schools? So it really depends on the lifestyle. And I think that's a very good kind of like estimation what you say, Jamie, because based on your rent, you kind of have a sense of where you might land. We have on our website, Simple Germany, a really detailed examples, and we also have a YouTube video where we go into talking about our cost of living. We have a very, I would say, simple kind of like lifestyle in Germany, which allows us to live with, I would say, relatively little money. But what's super cool is that all of these deductions that happen on your salary, like you don't have to worry about basic things like health insurance. There's another care insurance that gets deducted as well. Pension insurance. What is the third one?
Unemployment insurance.
Unemployment insurance.
So pretty much the entire social system that you either love or hate. A lot of foreigners love it. So that's pretty much, from your net salary, it's really just your rent and your living expenses. It's not any more healthcare or anything. So that sometimes takes a big chunk in other countries.
Yeah, a very big also thing to point out, the cost of living is something I think that happens when you're once stable in Germany, and then it's like your monthly recurring cost. But when you move to Germany, you will also have to take some of the cost as well, like some things that I don't know if it's very common in other countries, but in Germany it's very, very well known that a kitchen is not included, for example, when you rent an apartment. So most often than not, you need to invest some money and buy a new kitchen, for example. You need to give at least a 3-month caution is called, which is a down payment. So 3 times the rent of your apartment, you need to pay up front as well. So roughly, we did an estimation also in another video on YouTube, but roughly we estimate you need at least 2,000 euros to be able to relocate to Germany.
So you need 2,000.
Depending on your rent.
Yeah, so 2,000 to 3,000 for that kind of upfront cost of securing accommodation.
Right.
And how much does the cost of living vary from city to city in Germany? Like, is it all the same?
No, it really, really varies. Like if we just look at the pure rental prices, Munich stands out as by far the most expensive city, followed by Stuttgart and Frankfurt. So more like the southern part of Germany, I would say. Whereas, let's say on average, Berlin, for example, on average it's always relatively low, but we know in reality it's really, really high. So it really depends on where you want to live. You want to live smack in the city center, expect tremendously high rents. If you are okay to maybe commute because you're used to commuting anyways, then you can also, of course, like have a bit of lower rents. But yes, cities vary. The more known the name, pretty much the higher the rent. If you go to smaller towns, which still have a great life, depending, of course, where you get your job, then you can also expect lower rental prices.
Yes. The one thing to point out about Berlin is that it's a super popular hub, of course, because there's a lot of tech companies and startups there as well. So rent tends to be the tricky part where people have the first shock that it's not as cheap. However, other things are a little bit cheaper than other cities in Germany, like grocery shopping and going out for restaurants, and entertainment in general tends to be a bit cheaper in Berlin than in the rest of Germany.
Mm-hmm. So and when we're talking about high rents, there could be some people watching this thinking, oh my God, I've got to pay 300 euros rent. That's really high compared to today. And someone else might be saying, oh no, high means 5,000 euros. So could we maybe give some people an indication of what high rents actually, what the number might be in places like Munich and Berlin?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, high is different for everyone. Just to give an idea of what an okay rent is, for families or for couples, rent usually takes around, on average, 30% of your net salary, and as a single, 40% of your net salary. So you should not look at rent that is more than 40% of your net salary, because then you could run into more difficulties or not such a comfortable lifestyle anymore. And then as a number, it if you ask us, a rent of 1,000 is really high, but really individual. I would say the 30-40% mark of net salary gives a better feeling.
Maybe to try to give a little bit of an example, in Dusseldorf, at least, if you're looking at a rent of 4,000 euros a month, that is extremely a lot of money. However, those 4,000 euros might get you a very kind of modern looking, fancy in a way, good location, big apartment. And a lot of, so I would say that is very expensive, but maybe 4,000 for other people in a house that it's a bigger family is not that expensive, right? It's also relative to your lifestyle and what you want.
Okay then. And has anyone else got something they'd like to contribute on this specific topic while we're answering this question?
I'd just like to mention that I believe a link to their YouTube video on this subject will be sent round so that you guys can watch that and maybe have some different information from what we've discussed today. So that will be sent to everyone who's watching.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
And it might also be a good idea if we send around some accommodation websites for people to look at as well, so then they can see, like, okay, for what budget, what does that actually get me, and what does someone need? But your general advice of like 30 or 40% of net salary sounds like really good, sound advice to go on. And
anyone can work with that, right? Because that's not a number per se, but you can really see, what is my budget? Like, does the salary get me a good life, right? Because there's also been, we've done some research in terms of salary, cost of living, what are Germans satisfied with? And the average salary actually in Germany is roughly only around 46, I believe, 1,000 euro gross. But Germans are mainly only satisfied and happy with a salary, as like 2/3 of them, if it's above 60,000. So that already gives an indication that, for example, in the tech industry, you get a salary way above average. But of course, it depends if you're a single earner person.
Everyone froze. Oh, there, no.
Yeah, you froze for a short moment there, but I think we.
Yeah. Okay, we all froze.
Yeah, but I think the general point of people in technology will typically earn a salary that is above the average.
I think we're back.
You are now. You had frozen. I was
Okay.
filling the gaps there. But yeah,
another thing, internet in Germany.
Different topic.
Unfortunately, none of us.
Another thing. Another thing to consider is, of course, like the way of transportation, right? Like, for example, in Guatemala, my home country, public transportation was never a thing because it just doesn't exist really. Versus here in Germany, there's really good public transportation, and that is like a monthly cost that you need to consider if you want to take the train every day to work or whatnot. Gas prices, or like benzene, or how's it like for the car? Gasoline. I only have the German words of petrol. Tends to be actually quite high, the prices in Germany compared to other countries. Like when we travel through the US, it's shocking to see how cheap it is actually. So it's another thing, if you want a car, that tends to be even higher cost because the price of fuel is higher than normal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next question that we often get asked the most, which is why this is the second question, is the language skills. We always get asked from people in other countries, how easy is it for me to live and to work in Germany if I don't speak German? So what was, like, Jen and Yvonne, your experience? I guess you were maybe like most people, you were not like fluent German speakers before you relocated. So how did you find that whole language experience?
Well, I don't know if you have noticed, but actually Yvonne is German, so I'd be ashamed if she doesn't speak German.
You know what? Yeah, I should have placed the accent better.
I still have word finding difficulties in German. But most of my life I speak English as an adult, so.
But I can definitely answer that one. And I would say, job-wise, the way I have experienced it, at least here in Dusseldorf, is tech companies tend to hire, because there's a lack of people in the market, they tend to hire a lot of international people. So I've had always English speaking jobs. And some of them has been where the company's language is German, but the IT department's the German language was for the whole company, but in the IT department, it was English, for example, because there was just so many international people. So in my experience, you don't necessarily need to have a high level of German to get a job in the tech industry. However, learning German was definitely the key to kind of like understand a little bit more my colleagues and the German culture and why things are done a certain way. Because even though things were explained in English, I think learning the local language is what has enabled me to kind of understand Germans a little bit more. So I would say it's not required for a job, but for integration, I would say it's highly important in my opinion.
And how did you personally go about learning the language? Was it private courses? Was it all at home? Was it supported by the company you worked for? And then also, how did you find the experience of learning German?
Yes, so it was a mix of everything, actually. I had a private teacher at one point. I also had language courses that I found on my own. Also, some companies paid for language courses, or even when teachers came to the campus and taught us German. I also tried to learn some German at home, not so easy, I would say. But definitely my number one way has been actually to listen to local or German music. I love music in general. So listening to like German music and the lyrics not only has helped me increase my vocabulary, but also, again, learn a little bit about the culture. And the experience has been, honestly, for me, I'm not a very language-driven person, so it has been quite difficult.
It's ongoing.
It's still an ongoing process, although I would say I still, get by. By this point, I'm very comfortable having to deal with things on my own, like bureaucratic things or doctor stuff as well. And a lot of, even outside of the company, if you make a little bit of an effort to speak German and then you transition into like an English kind of thing, people are generally very receptive of that, as long as they're seeing that you're making an effort first to speak the language.
Mm-hmm. That's very good to know. So from our perspective as recruiters for German companies, we have a mixture. There are some companies who, for certain reasons, they just have to hire people that speak fluent German. Maybe the job requires you to deal with their customers, and their customers are German companies or German people. But increasingly, we are being told that we can find people who only speak English and have a willingness and a motivation to learn German on the job, and will take some support from the company in doing that. A few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, the most common thing was find us software developers that speak like B1, B2 level, and then we'll help them improve. But that has kind of dissolved away as the demand for these skills has got so incredibly high. The spoken language skills has been one of the first things that companies and employers in Germany of technology people have been flexible on. And I'm talking from a perspective of hiring permanent employees into companies. Is that the same for hiring freelancers, Alex and Chloe? Like, do you always need English or German speakers?
I'd say freelancers are generally they're based in like most of them are based in Germany that we hire, I'd say, and they are generally the ones that tend to get hired into the German speaking roles because they can't hire people on a permanent basis who can speak German. So yeah, if we do get any requirements for German speakers, sometimes it's because they can't hire a permanent German speaker, so they hire a freelancer who can. But yeah, generally it's not a requirement. They are quite open to hiring just English speakers as well, I'd say. Yeah, I think as well that us as recruiters, the whole topic of this is to obviously try to attract people who are not in Germany into Germany. And the reason that we're able to do this in the first place is because our customers in general don't really tend to require us to have German speakers anymore for both permanent roles and for freelance roles. Yeah, backing up what Jamie said.
So just from personal experience as well, I think also it really depends on location. So some of the locations in regards to somewhere like Dresden or Braunschweig might need a little bit more German, whereas somewhere like Berlin or Munich, they're more English speaking cities because obviously of people coming over and tourists and stuff like that. A lot of people do speak English, but I think it really depends on what location it is as well. Because you have the sort of more, I suppose, traditional German Germany kind of thing, and then more of a, okay, I'm moving to Berlin kind of thing. Everyone speaks English now. I'm quite safe here from personal experience anyway.
So the more rural and I guess slightly isolated the location you move to, the more important German language skills might become. But the major cities typically more international.
Absolutely. Also for your own like peacefulness and actually feeling like you are happy where you are.
Well, meaning like the more rural the area you go, the less people might speak German, right?
Yes, or the less.
I mean English.
The less other internationals you find. Obviously, especially in the beginning, we tend to attract like-minded or other foreigners. I would say, just to have someone to relate to, and that of course gets the number becomes lesser the more you're out of a city. Braunschweig is still a city; it's just not as big.
Yeah. Okay, so we know how to figure out, what you need to be earning. We know that actually this whole daunting topic about speaking German doesn't need to be that daunting. So the next question is, where the hell do you start, right? Do you get your visa? Do you get your job, or like your job offer from a company and then your visa? Or do you need an accommodation address? Should you move to Germany and then figure that stuff out? Or do you need both of them at the same time? So what order do you think are the priorities for someone to tick off before they become a full-time employee, full-time living in Germany?
Unfortunately, the answer depends on where you're coming from and what passport you have. That is actually the best answer. For example, someone like me from Guatemala, there is no way that I can get a job seeker's visa from Guatemala just to move to Germany and look for a job here. So in my case and other third countries, yeah, that's correct. You first have to have a job offer before you can actually move. There are other countries where they have the benefit that you can have this job seeker's visa, which means that you are allowed to move to Germany, apply for this visa, and then when you're in Germany, you're allowed to look for a job. But that doesn't apply to every nationality.
I would need to correct you on one wording that you used. So the countries like the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan can come to Germany as a tourist, 3 months stay, and you can find a job here without any worry about a visa. And once you have that contract, then you can actually, within Germany, with a tourist visa, apply for a work visa. So that is a super smooth process. Third world countries, in terms of not third party countries, politically speaking, can apply for the job seeker visa, which allows them 6 months to seek for a job. But for that job seeker visa, there are other criteria, mostly also academic degrees and other criteria to fulfill. So for third passport countries, it's easier, I would say, to find a job first and then move with that.
Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. So people have to do their due diligence and their research on what their options are, depending on essentially their nationality. We often see that for people outside of the EU, the education topic is quite a big topic. So, for example, to get something like a blue card, which is maybe the thing that most people will be targeting, they should have a bachelor's degree, like a university education, from a university that is recognised by the German government in a subject that is relative to the work they're going to undertake. So it's not enough to have a degree in acting or arts. If you're trying to become a software engineer, you should have a degree in computer science or something relative to that as well. So unfortunately, there very clearly isn't a blanket rule for everybody. You should do your own research and just kind of check out what you are eligible for. So there's a few people coming in with questions in the chat that I just want to address before we move on. Someone mentioned, I think it's Saras, on the topic of learning German, it can be difficult to find people to practice with. Is that the case? And if it is, what could you do to make that easier?
That's very good. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to say one of our colleagues, actually, a little bit different, but she's in one of our offices in Amsterdam. and she was learning Spanish. And I don't know the exact way she did this, but she met someone online from Mexico, and they regularly have Zoom calls to just talk. I think he was learning Dutch and she was learning Spanish, and they just catch up on a daily basis on Zoom to like test each other on their Dutch and Spanish. I'm not sure of the exact name for this, but I'm sure there's some kind of website where you can kind of meet someone online to help each other learn each other's languages.
Yes, absolutely. There's exactly that various of those platforms, like with a Tandem or other one. It's great that your colleague has this experience where the conversation actually keeps flowing. I think that is the big effort. Our most recommendation, I would say, best recommendation for when you're already in Germany, and the Germans are quite known for not being so easy to get to know. But the easiest, or say, a successful way to actually start a conversation with someone is to join a Verein. A Verein is like a local club. It could be a sports club, it could be an arts club, it could be a dance club, anything hobby related, I would say. And it's usually you pay like a yearly fee that is relatively little if you break it down to the month. And there you have people, a lot of Germans, that are interested in the same topic that you are. You have a common ground to have conversation with. It's a great way also to start making friends and to really also speak German outside the office and more in a relaxed manner. And if you're in such a Verein and you have a common interest, people also tend to be a bit more understanding and helpful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, one quick question I can very quickly answer. Harris, who says he's a self-taught iOS developer currently working at a company in Greece. Does he need a university degree to land a job in Germany? That depends on your nationality, Harris, not where you are living at the moment. So what passport have you got? What's your nationality? If it's a non-EU nationality, then yes, you'll need to have an education, a degree level education in something relative to computer science or software engineering. So the fact that you may live in the EU today, unfortunately, may not help you in relocating to Germany. So the next question, because I'm conscious of time, job sponsorship. Are companies often offering sponsorship opportunities to people who are from outside of the EU? I guess maybe us at Darwin might be the best to answer this question. Jess, who sat next to me, recruits for permanent employees. This is where people are more likely to get sponsored. Chloe and Alex and the other screens, they recruit for freelancers. And it's not often that a company would sponsor a freelancer because they need them in now. Or am I wrong?
Slight correction to that. So we do hire for freelancers, but we also hire for temporary employees. So this is where you become an employee of Darwin for 18 months, and we will send you to work with one of our customers. So one of our customers, for example, being a company such as Volkswagen or Ford, so they're big name customers, and we do sponsor you guys for that as well. So we had a guy recently who we've hired for one of our projects with Volkswagen. He's going to come and work for Darwin for 18 months on a Volkswagen project. And Darwin, I think in total we've funded his whole relocation and stuff like this for a total of about €4,000. And that includes the visa application fees, etc. So if that's what you mean by sponsor, then we can do that if you become an employee of Darwin and you go and work on one of our customers' projects. Yeah.
Good job. We've got Alex on the call, because I did not realise that our temporary workers team were sponsoring people. So you can look at our Darwin Recruitment website, and if you see a job that you're suitable for, you can apply for it, and that is how you'll find out which jobs you'll be sponsored for or not. I'm afraid we can't answer exactly which jobs will be sponsored for in this
case, isn't it? Yeah, some of our customers do sponsor people, some don't.
And then from permanent employees, Jess, how often do you see companies offer sponsorship opportunities to the people they want to hire?
Yeah, so I see it quite a lot in Berlin. I see it quite often from places such as Turkey and Russia in the past, where they're willing to sponsor the candidates across, and they pay and they cover absolutely everything. They also kind of go above and beyond that with the support and kind of the emotional support and personal support that you'll be needing when you're making such a big change and such a big move. I have some clients in the past who have had a German speaker go with, say, someone from Turkey down to the embassy so that they can help them with the language barrier and just make them feel a bit more comfortable in that kind of transition into Germany, as I do find that it's quite a big change. So sponsorship, I think, yeah, it's really cool, and it definitely goes beyond just the monetary side of it and the funding of the visas, etc.
Yeah, I think the only trend that I would notice is they tend to be for the more senior, high-skilled roles. The junior roles, companies often don't feel that they need to go to the extra effort to sponsor someone. So people looking for junior entry-level roles might not find the same degree of sponsorship opportunities as a more senior, highly skilled person in any field. Moving on, the next question we have is about finding an apartment. And this can be tricky. So I'm not even going to try and answer this question. The team at Simple Germany, what advice would you give people in finding somewhere to live?
Pretty much to treat the apartment hunt exactly the way you treated the job hunt. It is also the same situation. There is scarcity in terms of apartments, maybe even less than actually job opportunities at the current market trend here in Germany, I would say. And you just need to be really on top of your game. You need to hustle, you need to be prepared, and you need to be fast, especially fast. And I would say it's maybe the easiest way to find a short-term, or let's say not the dream apartment you would like to have as your first place to live, but just really look for something that suits for maybe the first half year or so. And then once you're here, you can get to know the neighborhoods, you can settle in a bit more smoothly, and then really look for a place that is maybe a bit more long-term, also with the necessary paperwork that most often landlords want to see, which you won't have if you have not lived in Germany yet.
Yeah, and very important is to also treat, if you're going to view an apartment, to really treat it as a job interview, because of course the landlords or the people renting out the apartments get an impression of who you are and how you're gonna like behave kind of like in the place. So it's very important to like show up like, you know, well dressed, not overly dressed, but like actually well dressed, and give a good impression, right? Like be respectful, not treat it as your buddy or your best friend, similar to how you do a job interview pretty much. Another thing, like how we mentioned, if it's very common that the apartments don't have a kitchen, so that is another thing that you might need to like consider when looking for an apartment. There are some that already have a kitchen included, but again, like usually what Germans do, they move into the apartment or house, and then usually kitchens, depends on where you order it, it takes some time, so they also set up like a temporary kitchen with some camping gear while they're waiting for this stuff to happen, just for you to know that that can happen and it's not unnormal for it to happen. And another thing, if you're moving and you're not with a family, a very popular option is to first search for a shared apartment. It's called WG. Again, in our guide that we're going to send after the call, you'll be able to find all these links, and there you can find shared apartments a lot easier as a temporary means before you can go ahead, if you want to live alone later, to find an apartment like that.
So you really need to make an effort when you're meeting these landlords as well. Be mindful that how you connect with that person is possibly going to make it much easier or much more harder.
Exactly.
If you can land your
I think what helps to understand is that the Germany is a rental country, so the majority of Germans rent and don't own property. And the German laws in terms of tenants and rental contract is very tenant friendly, meaning that if you, as a landlord, pretty much accept a tenant, it's very difficult to get rid of the tenant for whatever reason. They don't, you don't like them anymore, or they don't treat your property well. So they're very, very selective in who do they want to live in the house.
Okay, that makes, well, you can understand why they would be so selective then. Okay, so the next topic we have to talk about is education, but not in the sense of education for yourself and landing a job. This is more in the sense of if you're relocating with family, which I think about 70% of the people in this webinar are going to do or plan to do, and you have a child that you need to get into kindergarten, what really are the options? Do they have to go into a local school? Is there an international school? Do they have to learn the local language first? How easy or difficult could it be? So could you give us a kind of overview and introduction, first of all, into what are the options, and second of all, how easy or difficult that might be?
Of course. So the answer is always is it depends. It highly depends on the age, of course.
Yeah.
I would say the most difficult age is probably 0 to 3, or like 1 to 3, pretty much, because that is the kita, like the daycare, and it's notoriously known in Germany that also Germans struggle to get a spot, especially in cities, I would say. From 3 to 6, it's general kindergarten, where I would say 93% of Germans actually have their kids in kindergarten. It's half day. And from 6 onwards, there's actually a mandatory compulsory school attendance, meaning homeschooling is illegal and kids must attend school. Hence, also the cities kind of need to help newcomers to find schools. That help depends a little bit, of course, on the city, on the school, on also how much you're asking for it. But definitely it's from 6 till 15, 17, depending on how the patient needs to attend school.
Yes, some things to add to that, for example, like I think a kid attending to kindergarten already, they're learning to speak generally. So I think learning German or having German knowledge is not so critical, versus when you start first grade in the like real school, let's call it, there German becomes a bit more important. And again, to answer that question, it highly depends on the motivation of you when you're moving to Germany. Do you want to stay here like for the long term? Do you want to stay here lifetime? Or do you just plan to stay here a couple of years? If you want to stay here a couple of years, an international school might be an option because they tend to give education in English and German, but German is not like the main language, so the kid is able to integrate a lot easier. However, international schools are private schools and they need to be paid for, so that is another thing to consider in regards to the salary that you receive and the cost of living, of course, versus if you go to a public local school, it really depends on the school. We've done some research on it, and it highly depends really on the area, the amount of kids that speak the same foreign language, whether they will get extra classes for learning German. It highly depends. But every city usually has like an integration center where they can assess the family or your family if you're moving here with kids in terms of what might be the best course for your kid to integrate better into the German schools.
So I guess it's really down to what the parents are feeling as well. Will be if they've got the option, they can afford both. What would be better? I can see how there would be some positives and some potential trade-offs in both of those options.
Absolutely.
And of course, just one last thing. Of course, the younger the kid is, the faster it is for them to speak German. Of course, if they're going full time during the pandemic, that kind of shifted a little bit. But to some schools that we spoke, they said if the kid wants to, it highly depends on also on the kid's character and openness to it. If they want to, some young kids, like from 6 to 8, they can easily in 6 months, pick it up. It's that fast if the kid is open to it.
Wow. Chloe, you look like you have something to add here.
So obviously you said that sometimes it can be quite difficult even for the Germans to get their kids into school. So if someone was relocating, would you advise them potentially looking at the schools around the area and maybe getting on a few waiting lists before relocating? Or would you advise to have a look when they're there? Oh.
Well, we have another German Wi-Fi problem here, I think.
Small problem.
Jen and Yvonne, I'm sure, will be back in a second, as they have been any other time this has frozen. But the rest of us, I don't think, are the best people to ask that question. So let's all keep our fingers crossed that their Wi-Fi reconnect. This is a new problem. We've not gone this deep in the Wi-Fi problems for now. But while we're waiting for them, I'll just quickly shoot through some of the comments. Alex, it looks like you have a fan in the audience. Thank you, Sarah. And Sarah, so you had a question around the kids.
Question that's popped up a couple of times is like one guy asked if we hire people from India, for example. I don't think there's any country in the world where you can't be from, is there? You know, there's nothing to say that we can't hire people from India. The two sort of minimum requirements, I'd say, are the degree. You have to have a relevant degree, and then I think probably the biggest thing for a lot of people from countries such as India is whether or not our customer will sponsor them to relocate to Germany. So it's not a case of no, you can't be hired, but it may be a case that sorry, we can't sponsor you. I think that's probably the only thing to consider when I'm asking the question.
Just to add to that as well, you may also have a degree, but that degree needs to be approved in Germany. So you need to ensure that your degree is an approved degree via the university and degree. And just for an example, I've just hired someone in Brazil. So like Alex said, there's no issue in location for us. And it really depends, like Alex says, on the client, company, and if your degree is approved via Anabin.
Okay then, so we have you back, Jan and Yvonne. Never do that again. We were panicking.
So
Sorry, no idea what's going on. Anyways,
didn't finish we're
here.
The question.
So I would just like to add on that and then finish your question. Also, I think there is a sponsorship is just a stigmatized word, because we know it mainly, let's say, for the US, where you can get a job without being sponsored. But I would say for Germany or the EU in general, that is not true. Sponsorship just means that the company might be already open-minded of hiring someone from outside of Germany or the EU, meaning maybe has experience in it, maybe, like I just said, will accompany you in your first days, but all you need is a job contract, and you can get that even from a company that does not have an advertised sponsored job, because the visa, to be honest, is not expensive. It's like 190 euro or something, meaning you don't need a sponsorship to make your move to Germany happen. You just need to get a contract, and everything else will fall into place, because the company will need to fill out the paperwork anyways to then get you to Germany. So it really doesn't matter where you're from. It just matters for you to find that job. And even if you don't qualify for the blue card because you don't have that degree that you need for it, you can still get a regular work contract, visa, like a work residence permit, like Jen had. So it is possible. It really just depends on how much you want.
And the company wants it.
Yeah, and the company wants it. Absolutely, yeah. And to answer your school question, school, every kid will get a school place because it's mandatory. What I said is difficult. It's a KETA spot, because until the age of 6, children do not have to be taken to daycare. They can also stay at home. So the age 1 to 3 is the most tough spot, I would say, to get. However, it's also not impossible. We actually had a chat with one of our viewers and readers who had a kid that's 1 year old and moved to Düsseldorf recently from Ecuador or Peru. And he just wrote to KETA after KETA after KETA and actually got a spot. So it was totally possible. And what he did is he wrote his email in English, put it in Google Translate, and just sent the German version to literally the KETAs around the area where he found the job. And that's how he found the KETA. So it's not impossible. It's just not going to be easy.
Nothing in this is easy, by the sound of it. But totally worth it in the end for many, many people. So don't let this information put you off from trying to move to Germany. You're going to go into this experience with your eyes wide open, and afterwards, once it's done, it's done. And hopefully it will be absolutely worth it for you. So the final topic that we're going to talk about now is healthcare. This comes up, to be honest, more frequently since the coronavirus pandemic. So I think our health is more in the forefront of our minds these days. And again, I think Jen and Yvonne, you are the people to answer this question. Could you give us an overview of the healthcare system and how it works in Germany?
Yes, we can keep it short and sweet, or try at least. It again depends. Oh my God. But the one thing for sure is that you do, by law, need to have healthcare in Germany. That is the fact. Like, it doesn't matter if it's public or if it's private. You cannot be residing in Germany without any healthcare at all. So that is one very important thing to point out. And whether it's public or private, that really highly depends on your situation. Are you single? Are you with the family? What is your salary, etc., etc. But if you are public or privately insured, again, like, all these deductions get taken away before you even get your salary. So that's part of like the expense of your gross salary. So it's not like you get money in the bank and then you pay your health insurance. It gets like deducted before you even see the money. And whether to find out if you're actually better to be publicly or privately insured, we have a partner called Feather Insurance. They have a very good service in English where they assess case by case whether what's the best option for you. Not whether who pays them the most money, but more or like what is the better financial option for you. Because the public healthcare system is very awesome, but you cannot apply if you earn after a certain threshold. And the private healthcare can be also quite expensive. So it's like a lot of kind of like things I need to consider, many variables that I cannot answer in this webinar.
Okay. True, it's a big topic, isn't it? But I think the main takeaway for a lot of people will be that it's fairly good quality compared to many parts of the world.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so is the rest of the kind of social system in Germany. So if you get a job in America, yes, your taxes will be lower and your net salary will be higher, but you then have all the headaches to deal with yourself, with your social securities and your healthcare. In Germany, it's almost like conveniently done for you by the government.
Yes. And I can only say and vouch that, at least because again, my threshold or my comparison bar is very low. Guatemala, I don't need to, like, it seems that I talk very bad about my country, but have to admit that certain things don't work so well. So in Germany, I've been very happy with the healthcare system. Really, it's you can go to any doctor whenever you have a problem. It's not, you don't have to always think, oh, but I'm going to pay extra or I'm going to do something if you're publicly insured. So I've been very happy. I've been able to get pretty much whenever I'm sick or whatever, I'm able to go to the doctor without any issues, and things work out pretty well.
Mm-hmm. Good to know.
Just one more addition: you actually already need health insurance for your visa, so it's a mandatory requirement to come to Germany per se. Without the health insurance, you won't get a visa. And like Jen said, the type, maybe you don't have a choice. It really depends on how much you earn, and that is already setting the baseline whether you will go public or private, most likely.
Sure.
And am I right in saying that some companies, when you move to Germany, actually give you health insurance as part of a package? I know it probably varies depending on what company you work with, but is that something sometimes they do, or is it something that you have to do on your own?
So that would be a very, I would say, US approach, that the company pays for your health insurance. In Germany, your company, the employer always pays 50%, and you as an employee always pay the other 50%. But you don't see any of that money. That's what Jen said. That's what we said in the beginning. From your gross salary, approximately 40% will be subtracted, and part of those 40% are social contributions such as health insurance, as well as taxes, of course. So you basically just need to sign up with a health insurance company, and the payment of it gets handled through your payslip.
Mm-hmm. Nice and simple. It is a lot of money, but when it's organised for you and it's to a good quality, I think it's going to be worth it for most people. So we have about 10 minutes of time left on this webinar. We have quite a few questions that people have sent in through the question box. So I'm just going to skim through these and see what we can help with. So we have a question from Marv. Is there a clear way to understand salary brackets and taxes? What I mean by that is, as a foreigner negotiating your salary, you don't want to negotiate at a particular range where you fall into a higher tax bracket and have less net income at the end of the month. I think I understand. In the UK, we have a tiered system, and you could end up where you're earning, say, £50,000 and you're actually paying a bit more tax, and so your net income, maybe you're better off earning 49,999 British pounds than 50,000. Is that the same in Germany?
Now we need to be very careful with tax. We're not certified tax consultants, so real disclaimer: it's a very sensitive topic in Germany. But no, it is not. So the tax in Germany is progressive, meaning the more you earn, the more taxes you pay. However, of course, at a certain level of salary, you always already end up at the highest point. So there is, of course, a basis that is all calculated on. And let's say if you earn 80 or 90,000, will not progress the tax anymore because you're already at the highest of 42%.
Okay, and is that the very, very highest amount that you'll contribute is 42%?
Technically, yes. There is the 45% that I believe starts at $250,000.
Okay. And at that point, I guess that extra percent is not really the biggest problem, is it?
Probably.
we would say those people in that fortunate position can probably stomach that. Someone has asked, can we rely on numbeo.com?
We use that website also for our research.
Yes. So again, I think any data point on the internet, including our case study that we will share after this webinar, can be taken with a grain of salt, right? Because Numbeo is crowdsourced. It's information that everyone puts willingly. They have certain factors for statistics, so it's kind of like as reliable as possible. So it gives you an estimation, but I wouldn't take it like that is the hard truth. So it's a good way to kind of like orientate yourself more or less how prices might be.
Yeah, so useful perhaps for perspective and a broad understanding, but not 100% accurate in every circumstance. Balaj Kumar, you mentioned do we recruit people from India? You've applied for a position on our website. Yes, we do. We get a huge amount of applications. We will review as many as we do review all of them. And if you are suitable for a role, you will hear from Darwin Recruitment. So please, if you see something, send your CV over. That's the easiest way for us to organise things internally. Hi, I'm from El Salvador. I want to know which city is the most expensive to live in as Germany, as many jobs I look for are in English only. I think I know the answer to this. I would say it's probably Munich.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes, Munich and Frankfurt are and Stuttgart. Yeah. However, I would also say that those cities generally tend to also pay a higher average salary, just to higher cost of living, higher income, but still higher cost of living. So it kind of evens out at some point, I think. But those are definitely the most expensive ones. Yeah. And funnily enough, I think even Munich, though being the most expensive city to live in, it has the cheapest monthly public transportation pass of all of Germany. So.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that, would you?
Yeah.
If everything else is expensive, you think it would all go up with it. But we absolutely see the same thing. The salaries in Munich are quite a way higher than where I recruit for, which is mostly Cologne and Düsseldorf. But so is the cost of living. So they are relative to each other. The next question is a great question about salaries. Are they paid in 12 portions, or are they paid in 14 portions in Germany?
That depends on the company.
Yes.
I would say more like corporate-like or traditional companies may add the 13th and 14th salary could be Christmas money or vacation money. And we have experienced that.
Yes.
If you are in younger, hipper, more modern companies, most likely that doesn't happen.
Yeah. That's
if you're in the industry where you have like union contracts, then most likely you do have a special pays because the union negotiated that. But if you're in an industry without a union, it really depends on the company.
Yeah. Okay. There is some kind of relocation support in order to get a working visa and relocate with my family. In our experience, that similar answer, highly subjective to the company. Some companies will offer relocation support for your whole family. Other companies will pay for your relocation, and then you will have to fund your family. And the way we see people manage that is either they're fortunate enough to be able to cover that up front, or they may relocate to Germany on their own, save up some money with their new German salary, and then relocate their family something like 3 to 6 months later. That's probably a bit more of the common trend, because someone has to come to Germany and figure out, was this a good idea for the rest of my family or not, before the whole family unit commits to that relocation. I want to relocate to Germany. I don't have a visa. What first steps should I do? I mean, I think you should go to Simple Germany and have a look at all of the content there, because I cannot speak highly enough of the stuff that Jen and Yvonne have put together. It is fantastic. But if Simple Germany didn't exist, what else could people do, or where would they begin their relocation?
Yeah, so again, I mean, visa here is the keyword, right? And again, we land on, again, it depends where you're coming from. And if you're coming from, like we discussed earlier, from a country that does not have this benefit of just arriving to Germany and looking for a job. So I would first assess where do you stand in that spectrum. And once you know that, then you can start doing your job hunt, either here through Darwin as well, apply to the jobs that they have online, or find other job boards to apply to jobs. LinkedIn is another good one where I see a lot of people posting things that are not open to other places for some reason, and then look for jobs nonstop. And also we have some tips on how to create a CV by the German standards, where Jamie also gave us some really hot tips that you can also implement. So yeah, I would say start there.
Super. Is there an age limitation? No, I don't believe so. Just as long as you're an adult, that will be much easier than if you're not. No, there's no age limitation for any of these topics. There's a few questions which we have touched on already. I'm just looking for something that perhaps is completely new. Here's an interesting one. Is there any problems to relocate from Russia because of the political situation? I actually don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
I also don't know. However, from what I'm like consuming in the media and from hearsay, I would say Ukrainians as Russians are both welcome, as long as I would say we obviously don't, support aggressivity or violence, and and are qualified to find a job. But as long as that is the key factor, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I agree.
On that topic of the political situation, something we notice is there are certain companies who have said to us in our search work, if you find us someone from Ukraine and that we can help, we will put them at the top of our interview process. We'll prioritize applications from Ukraine, because those people are suffering. So that's not that they're discriminating against anyone or they're not hiring Russians, but in the first couple of weeks of the war, and there was a concerted effort by larger companies to try and hire Ukrainian people and offer some help. Basically, it was coming from a good place.
Just to add on to that, just quickly, we have seen some relocators from Russia in Berlin being relocated over with one of our clients. So not a lot on that front has actually stopped for us as far as relocating anyone from any of those areas. It has just been very much business as usual as far as I've seen on the relocation front. But again, it depends on the company as well as to what country they're relocating from all round. Some focus their searches inside of Europe. It does vary. But yeah, just from my side in Berlin, I'm still seeing Russian relocation all the time.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
Well, I think we should all do it across all of Germany. Someone's asked that question. We get a lot, and that's about relocating with animals and pets. How easy is it to find an apartment with a small dog or a cat?
Good question.
So we have written actually like an extensive guide on things, because you need some paperwork, especially if you're not coming from the EU. So we have a written guide step by step what you need to consider if you want to move with a small dog that you can follow. And I would say finding an apartment, again, it depends, but we've had experiences like, for example, us in our home, we can have a pet if we would want to. We have friends who their landlord doesn't want a pet. So I would say it's like 50-50. There is no harsh yes or no. Germany tends to be a very pet-friendly country in general. So it really depends on the landlord and how they see their house, whether they're also pet friendly or not.
Right. And on the platforms where you can plat hunt that we have also listed in our guides, you can have a filter where you can select pets, yes, or negotiation, meaning it's probably possible, but the landlord just wants to talk to you beforehand or see if it's not like a massive, like, I don't know, maybe German Shepherd or I don't know what. On that note, please, if you have dogs particularly, please look at our guide, because there are 4 breeds that are not allowed to be imported, the dangerous dog type. So that is, I would say, an important information.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, that brings us, I think, to the close of this webinar after an hour of what I hope is really, really useful conversation. We got to answer some good questions that I certainly didn't prepare to answer. So thank you to everyone for your contributions and your questions. Again, I encourage everybody to go and check out the Simple Germany website. If I'm using it and I'm relying it, and part of my job is to relocate people to Germany for the companies we recruit for, I think that speaks volumes, just how good the content there is. Check out the YouTube channel. We'll send the links around afterwards. Make sure you subscribe to the channels, any email lists that the guys have. And if you are in the world of technology, software engineering, data science, any kind of technology talent, go to darwinrecruitment.com, look at our job adverts and apply it. And if we can find you a good place to match your skills to, we will absolutely be in touch. So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for your time. And yeah, I think someone asked if this is recorded. I believe it is. A recording might be distributed on email. So thanks again. Enjoy your evenings.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
later.
Thank you very much,
Thanks for having us.
and all the best to everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.